And in our niche is like you can always get a batch test result from a third-party lab on every single product by just scanning the QR code on the label. It's a non-profit validating the lab called Clean Label Project, based out of Colorado.
Hello and welcome to Starting Small. My name is Cameron Nagle, and what you're about to hear is a resilient story to an entrepreneur's journey over the brand that we know and consume today. At Starting Small, I believe that everyone has a story to tell under one philosophy. Everyone starts small. Even these founders have once started where you are, in their parents' kitchen, basement, out of a wagon, and many more. At Starting Small, we discuss the strategies used, the obstacles overcome, and the successes of an entrepreneur's journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Starting Small, and make sure to leave a review to let us know how you enjoyed it. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Oliver of Puori. Oliver, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course. Well, I'd like to start out with your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
So as you can hear, my accent is not typically American or anything. It comes from the Nordics and rather Denmark. So I grew up just outside Copenhagen, Denmark, which is it's obviously a small country, but Copenhagen is the largest city that we have. And I grew up with my mom and my sister. So my mom and my dad were really not that together for a very long time. So I grew up with my mom, two super strong women in my life, actually both entrepreneurs as well. So yeah, it's just that was my upbringing basically, and a very good childhood in terms of like the opportunities that you have in Denmark is different, because no matter where you are, we have a really good welfare system, which means basically everybody gets a chance to like go into any type of school they want. You get paid to go all the way through school in Denmark. There's no intuitions or any fees. You actually get you get a salary if you're onboarded on an education. You can even go abroad, they will pay for it, as long as you're kind of doing your thing. So most people tend to take an education just based on the system. So we have a very well educated system basically.
I'd like to dive into more of that here soon. What would you say your mindset was like growing up? Did you have an entrepreneurial mindset, say like selling products or lemonade stands or anything like that growing up?
Yeah, I think so. So I've always been very individual in that regard, and just by seeing my mom and my sister, and my sister's like 6 years older, she was always kind of treading the steps ahead of me and kind of paving the way in many ways. And she did a lot of things herself, and she was an entrepreneur. So I took over her newspaper route at a very young age, which made sense. And I added more newspapers route, and actually had a few people helping me out suddenly. And this was like I was like between 11 and 13, I think. So it was pretty early on. And then I think I've always just seen that kind of mindset of, go after something, chase it, and work hard for it. And you'll get somewhere.
For sure. Going into kind of that program in Denmark, that welfare program. So say if you wanted to go to a university, where did you end up studying? And then what did that assistance kind of look like?
So it's interesting when you have the world in front of you, you take it for granted, right? So, for us, my mother was like, fairly adamant, go through school, take an education. I was like, I want to do this. I want to start this. I want to travel. I want to do a lot of stuff. You're generally, expected to kind of go through an education. And I went through an education as well. Like after what we'll call high school here, you go into college and more your kind of studies. And I ended up also finishing a bachelor in international business and communication. But I was starting on my master's, and at the time I had started a personal training facility. I started a CrossFit gym, which was kind of one of the first CrossFit gyms in Europe. It was the first one in Denmark. So there was a lot of things going on. I was playing around with an app for intranet fitness, basically for corporate organizations to utilize some of these facilities that many larger corporations had, but no people was using it. And this is before the iPhone, so there was not an app for it. It was like an intranet video thing. So I was doing a lot of things, and I felt like I got gotta not finish my master's right now. I gotta do some of this. It felt like it was a window of opportunity, and I actually had to argue a little bit with my mom as well, because she was like, I've been working hard for us to live in the right area and go on, so you could get an education, and we kind of agreed on, if I wasn't successful at age of 30, I had to go back and do the master's. So.
Wow. So what did this time period look like when you stopped the master's? Did you end up getting another job to kind of like help fund while you're building the startup, or what did that look like, that period?
No, I think already at the time I was probably, I had a very thriving personal training business in a good area of towns. I was like coaching maybe close to 40 hours a week at the time. So, you could bring in the early mornings, and then you could go to school for a few hours, and you could come back and continue. That was the flexibility of something like that, which was phenomenal for building up also a little bit of cash for potential next venture, because I didn't have like, finance, or I didn't bring cash from previous to start something up. So when we started the gym, the CrossFit gym, we already had some capital from the cash flow that the personal training business was generating. When we then started Puori later on, again, it was an opportunity to do several classes on the side, and then not take a salary for a period of time to, again, be scrappy and get going, basically. So that's how it worked.
Wow, amazing. Kind of diving into this CrossFit model again. What did that model look like? You said you had some existing buildings that you were able to kind of get a hold of and then kind of rent those out, or what did that look like?
I was very fortunate. So first of all, this is in 2006. So CrossFit is like in its infant stage, right? It was super young. It was still just like grassroots fitness tendency, right? Like, I really enjoyed the philosophy, the way that they were able to actually put a formula to fitness by, using force times distance divided by time equals power output, creating all these different varied exercises so that he or she who was the most fit was the one that could do the most different things, and not just like specializing in one area of fitness, whether it's strength or flexibility or, stamina or whatever it could be. So I felt like that made a ton of sense. And the gym then was, it started out just being training. Then it made sense to change it to, it was called CrossFit Denmark at the time, which made a lot of sense back then because there's no other gyms. And suddenly when there was like 50 gyms in Denmark, CrossFit Denmark didn't make a lot of sense later on. But that was, early stage, fun and issues at the same time. But that kind of took me into that. And that's also where I met Jules, who was and is my co-founder in Puori. And that's when we started to talk about, like we talked about inflammation and lifestyle diseases and all the things that were kind of around the realm of fitness and wellness in general. And we were very curious on all the things you could do from a preventative mindset in order to live a healthier and longer and happier life, basically. And one of the key things we dived into were omega-3 fatty acids, or the imbalance of omega-3 versus omega-6s that we were seeing from the diets and from the research and so on. And then that's why we started talking about fish oil and omega-3 fatty acids. And that's how Puori got started.
Wow. So what was Julius's background coming into this? You didn't really have a background in food or science such as this. So that's I'm curious.
Yeah, and I think that's been our blessing at the time, at least, being until we could attract the right people with the right education and so on. But I think Jules' background, he came from same kind of business, went all the way through school, took his master in business, and he was working at a bank on the side. So with like a promising, career path in the bank. But he was I've always called him like I think it's the wrong word, but the junior scientist, or the little scientist. He's super smart and he loved tearing things apart. So I think like tearing it apart to pieces, basically, and breaking things down and understanding how they're built, and then kind of rebuilding and thinking, how can you build this better? And that's how we were diving into, where does omega-3 come from? How is it created? What's the key things of omega-3? What's then going on in the industry? Why is everybody doing this when we feel it should be done like this? And I think our ignorance and, our just consumer mindset of we want this, it has to be like, the freshest fish oil on the market, meaning low oxidation numbers so that the omega-3s was most potent. It had to be free from environmental toxins, because that's basically what started our brand. Because everybody was telling us, omega-3 acids are good and, they're good for you, but just watch out when you start consuming, fish, and it can be polluted, just there might be mercury, dioxins and other environmental toxins in fish oil. So just make sure you buy a pure one. And that was like a clean one. And we were like, oh, that makes sense. And we were walking out to the different retailers and pharmacies, and we couldn't get answers from anybody. So we were like, this is weird. Every single one of the expert and specialists are saying just, it's omega-3 is great, but watch out for, heavy metals, dioxins that will be naturally occurring in fish because of how we've, taken care of the planet. But then when we went out in the, to the marketplace, and this is back in 07, 08, there was no brands in Denmark that wanted to share any information with us. We found a laboratory in Canada that was like posting, it was called the International Fish Oil Standards. They were posting these different lab reports from different brands. And we felt like that should be kind of the entry barrier. When I walk into my website, it should be, here's the lab result. This is what's in, this is what's not supposed to be there. And it's transparent, it's simple. And we felt that there was an opportunity to create a brand around that. So that's when we started to become super interested in that path. And obviously we were then talking out with different specialists, doctors, people who studied this for a long time. And we were all kind of getting the same feedback, but nobody had really focused on, solving or at least giving the transparent solution for the end consumer. So that's what we wanted to create.
So in 2009, Puori officially launches. You take these results, lean on transparency. Did you end up going with that brand that was based out of Canada, or that lab, to help you formulate the product?
Yeah, so they didn't formulate the product, but they did all of the third-party testing for us, so we could kind of see if we were looking at different fish oils and curious to see which one are the cleanest, which one had the best oxidation markers and so on. So by that we could pinpoint the distant manufacturers out there. And then we could say, okay, we know that these oceans are the least polluted. We know these type of fish are the best because they're smallest in the food chain. They build up the least amount of environmental toxins. And that way we could kind of map out, okay, so this is where we should aim to get our raw ingredients from. These are the manufacturers who have shown the best results on the data that we've seen. And then those are the ones we want to work with and kind of build, and then share the report from there on and just keep pushing them. And that's something we continue to do that today. And I think we're both a little bit annoying as a partner, but also hopefully, just private some consumer trust, because we want to share all this data. But obviously, we're pushing to getting the things cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as much as possible, because unfortunately the planet is in many cases moving in the other direction. It's getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier because of how we are polluting it. So it's not getting easier. And today we have a much wider range of products, but the whole concept of the brand, because there's tons of food supplement brands out there, it's a red ocean, right? Like there's so many directions and so many. What we focused on is the few key ingredients which we, based on science, have seen that deliver a result. The omega-3, the magnesium, the D vitamin, the very heavily documented, and there's a lot of heavily documented food supplements out there. And in our niche is like you can always get a batch test result from a third-party lab on every single product by just scanning the QR code on the label, and you'll be taken straight to, now it's another lab. It's not a lab, but it's a non-profit validating the lab called Clean Label Project. based
Wow.
out of Colorado, and they post every batch report, every single label they post up there, so the consumers, they know exactly. I can go in and see dioxins, oxidation, if
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking at. But if it's, let's say it was a pea protein, again, heavy metals, is there any pesticides residue, plasticizers, anything from the extraction process that you might not want into your product, and so on. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. When I look at my own supplements that I've consumed in the past, I don't think they have that kind of transparency where it like directly takes you to that QR code, to that link to educate myself. I love that portion of the brand. I'm curious, in the early days, what were some of the first products that you launched with, and why?
Yeah, so we launched with the omega-3 based on that issue that we were seeing. Like, hey, how come everybody's saying this has to be clean, but nobody's sharing that information? I think we call it the pretty baby theory. So we created this pretty baby on theory, right? It's like, it's the perfect product, and we will just like, we're going to call all the major retailers, and it's going to be so easy because we have data that this is clean and better than the others, and they will take us in and we'll sell a lot, and it will be just, it's smooth sailing. And as most entrepreneurs will tell you, that is exactly how it's not going to go. So, it was a much different process, and we ended up going in a total different directions that retailers didn't get it. They're starting to right now. So if you look into, whether it's Target, CVS, or some of the major ones in the US, Whole Foods obviously pioneered part of this, quality assurance side. But, even like Target has a clean at Target logo now, where they're starting to set their standards. What does clean mean? CVS, Project Beacon, they're doing different things to, test products and so on. So we're seeing transparency is getting broader. But when we started out, most people didn't care. The consumer we saw that did care was the CrossFitter. So the CrossFitters, they were like, okay, they were into their food and training, the diet, they wanted to nerd anything. And they were again getting like, pick like best high quality omega-3 is one of the good supplements that you can add to your diet. And so that's how we spread very internationally for a small Danish brand. Basically, remember, Denmark is like 5.5 million people, so wow. It's like it's not even Manhattan, right? Like it's a tiny tiny place, but we spread on, like, suddenly we were selling in Australia, South Africa, Asia, US, and all over, because the CrossFit community really was growing and were appreciating the transparency that we were giving them.
Wow, amazing. At launch, did you launch on an e-commerce website? Is that how you expanded internationally so quick, or did you go into retail? What did that look like?
So it was a startup mix, right? So a classic, let's do a little bit of everything and run in every direction and chase every opportunity until we decided that we had to kind of mature a little bit and grow up. So we were doing like distributors and retailers, CrossFit gyms, direct to consumer, third party web platforms. We were kind of selling all over the place, and we decided that we couldn't become the brand that we wanted to be associated with by being so underinvested in every channel, basically, because that's what ended up happening, right? You become underinvested, and we picked out certain markets where we wanted to be. We'd be more positioned and more so on. But that being said, we definitely, as the brand continues to grow and our positioning continues to grow, it will definitely open up more markets, because again, it's a need all across the globe for transparent, high quality food supplements as well.
So. For sure. Talking on the expansion, what would you say is your main marketing strategy, and what have you found to be the most successful for the brand?
Yeah, so I think we had two journeys, I would say, in the marketing side, because one was this first organic growth through the CrossFit community, where we decided to say, after we couldn't just get the retailers on board that we wanted, we decided, let's just go after, we'll do everything we can to support the CrossFit community and be in that space. So that was like from influencers to events to going to the gyms, educating, hosting webinars, doing like everything we could of kind of as easy accessible marketing as possible. So that, combined with, at the time, social media marketing was like was actually organic, right? And you could go really far without having to pay through the engines. Yeah. Today, it's obviously a different game. Our focus is becoming less and less just being associated with CrossFit, since like vitamin D is equally important for so many other populations, or omega-3. And it's still a big group of our customers, but I think that our consumers are more the ones that really care about the environmental footprint that they're taking in. And that is a new niche. So when we started CrossFit, that was a niche, but this is a new niche, but it's a niche that we believe will become much broader and more important for the brand and what we're doing over time. We're not saying that CrossFit and fitness is not important. It's super important for the people and individuals. But I think for us as a brand, the whole purpose was, how can we help bring transparency to the industry by showing the way? So we're showing the way first. We're pushing our suppliers and every end. We're educating consumers, and now we're trying to get other brands on board as well. Because at the end of the day, I would much rather be a consumer where I could go down and buy my, let's say protein for now, but it could be my dark chocolate, my rice, and having a transparent QR code, so I could actually see, what's the heavy metal content that I have in this dark chocolate, what's the heavy metal content, because there is environmental toxins in our food chain. And right now we're like, all of us are ignorant. Like we have no idea. We might be polluted by water in our house that we don't know. We might be polluted by air that we don't know. Most times we are polluted by the food we consume that we don't know. And, you've seen the scandals right now on PFAS and, the forever chemicals and how they're just kind of everywhere because we use them for so many different things. They're in our bodies. We know they're, they're bad for us in so many different ways. We know they're hard to get rid of in the body. That's, to us, it's such a minimal viable part of the playing field of being able to say, as a consumer, high risk of contamination, because we know there's contamination out there, should just be tested. It's a fairly simple lab report. It's not simple to fix it necessarily back chain, but that's another project. But as soon as consumers want that, that's something you can expand. So to answer your question and not going too far off on a tangent here for you, like the key is we start to see healthy moms, because generally when we become parents, we start to become more aware of environmental toxins, because we're told, watch out what you're consuming. It might get into your milk. We're told minimize rice exposure. Don't eat fish from these areas. So suddenly the environmental toxin is coming on our radar due to where we are in life. So we focused on that audience for a period of time. But I would say the entire toxicology environment, the people who are like generally caring about removing environmental toxins from our lives, that's where we're going to focus. And that's also where we see many of the consumers are coming from. If we go deep nerding on our Amazon data, for example, and look at, the many reviews we have on some of our products, and we can see how many people like they were like, I was researching the web for the cleanest magnesium product, and I found Clean Label Project. It's a nonprofit. They seem like they're testing different products and putting up data, and I could actually find the data on this product. So I trust that it's clean and I can consume it on a regular basis. Because that's the other component of food supplements, and reason why we believe it's such an important area to shed light on is you're consuming this day in and day out. I use myself as an example. I've been consuming our omega-3 fatty acid fish oil, like capsules, 3 to 6 capsules. I get my blood measured. I'm fairly dialed in on biometrics and so on. But if there was a little bit of heavy metal in it, I would have been polluting myself. I've been consuming these for 13 years, right? It's a very long time. And so our point is the things that you're doing on a daily basis, the things you consume regularly, they have to be clean. Right?
For sure.
So
interesting. Taking some of that data, what would you say is the top seller for Puori, looking at it today?
So it varies a lot from market to market, actually, and even something by season and even by channel. So I think, as you see, we don't have a lot of products, so we don't have a lot of different, but there's 5 products that are the majority of our sales. And then it varies a lot from market to market, which one are the driver. But it's the omega-3, the magnesium, the D vitamin, it's the protein product, especially in the US. And then it's our collagen products. Those are, I would say, the biggest ones. But again, then we have like in the Nordics over here, and especially in Sweden, we have big spike of vitamin D sales in the winter, like a huge spike. So quantities goes up dramatically because people we have light all day during the summer, and then we have zero light during the winter, right? So people are a little bit more. At least in Sweden, we've seen that they're even more educated on, it's a good idea to add D vitamin to your diet during the winter time.
Amazing. Well, I like to conclude each episode with this. If you could share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret, what would you say that would be?
So one piece of advice is hard, but I would say obviously don't give up.
Yeah.
Believe in. There's this. I was saying there's two routes you can become an entrepreneur. You can become really good at just seeing opportunities and acting on it, and kind of the whole entire process of building something that's growing and maybe exiting is one route. But the other one is like super related to who you are as a person and your purpose and your values. And if it's the latter, you want to be in it for a long time. I've been in Puori for 13 years, obviously since we started, and I could be here. I hope that the brand will be enduring and that we will be here many years from now. I don't have to have a deadline and end goal because it's such a value. But if you're the entrepreneur that's like love creating stuff and it's more for the creation, it's a different process. So I think that's it. And then the overlying theme is hustle hard. It will take a lot of work and effort, and then align yourself with good people, have good people around you that is better at the things you're not that good at.
For sure. Well, Oliver, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, and to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Puori at puori.com.